Okay. We'll see how that works. We may or may not have a recording. We'll give it a try. Thank you again for all coming, and people online as well. This talk is about spam, spoofing, and phishing. Did somebody online have a concern? We hear you through a speaker here. Okay. I would ask people remotely to mute their devices so you don't end up in the middle of the room here. Although you're welcome to come and join us if you have the ability. So where are we going? Yes, we're having a presentation on this. Partially initiated because recently a couple of residents here have in fact been hacked and their email has been spoofed. And all of that relates to what's called the phishing activity. So we're going to look at what those concepts mean, and then we'll look at real world examples. Ironically, I said, well, I'll go into my spam folder and pick off some, which I did. And then I got one in the mail. Then I got another one in the mail. So while it's, in fact, the most recent relevant piece of information I got at 4 o'clock tonight. It isn't spam or spoofing. It's actually a recommend or a newsletter from United Way in Nashville on scam attempts. So that's what I don't have on the hand.
Jim, some of the people said that you're garbled. Some of the,
I'm garbled.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It says that up here.
You saw it. Good. Thank you for pointing that out. Those disappear unless we have the chat turned on. So I will try to stand a little bit closer to the microphone, which may help eliminate garble. And obviously room noises can interfere as well. So I'll pay attention to that. We should be in good shape. This part. Okay. Technically, this goes one at a time if I do it right. This happens to be National Consumer Protection Week. Who knew we were going to end up there? That's assuming that there is consumer protection still, but conceptually, it's important as consumers and users of online technology for you to be aware of some of these issues and the ways people can try to get your money or other things from them. So the terms I put in the title, one is spam. This is essentially unsolicited email, unsolicited text messages, and typically those could be simple advertising. You may get spam from somebody who wants to fix your car or provide you with some service that's perfectly legitimate. You didn't solicit it, they have no relationship to you, and that's still spam. But you also get spam, which is targeted at nefarious purposes. People who are trying to get your money, steal your identity, break into your computer. And that's the ones we're going to be focusing on primarily today. So the second concept is spoofing. Now, this is not fun because what happens is somebody can take your name and potentially take your email address and pretend to be you, and then send mail that looks like it's coming from you to your contact list. This happened twice in the last week, just in this building. So this is happening in real time. We'll talk a little bit about how that occurs, but it means that when you see an email from somebody and you say, oh, I know that person, you have to also think, is that really them? And quite often the messages you get sent out this way are very simplistic. So they say things, the two I've seen recently, one is, do you use Amazon? No explanation, but looking for you to reply. Then when you reply, that does a couple things. It confirms your email address, so now they can target you with more spam and more phishing attempts, which is what this really is. And it also means that they're going to try and get back to you and encourage you, in this case, to buy an Amazon gift card for their niece who, has a birthday and you didn't, So the only way to get that card is if you buy it for them, give them the number, and they'll go away and pocket the money and you'll never see them again. That's what will really happen. They'll claim they're going to send the number to their niece as a birthday gift or graduation present, or whatever it is. So you can imagine the sob story will come up with it. The phishing is, in fact, this effort to connect with you, which is why the term phishing is used, to catch you, to pursue whatever scam they're trying to actually pursue. So it could be the one I just described. Another one I've seen recently is, did you get my last email? It doesn't matter what you answer because now they got you and they're in contact. I'll show you ways you can detect this and ways you can report this. So that'll be part of what we look at. The key message is, if you see a message and it's dubious, don't reply and don't click through. If it's from somebody you know, try calling them on the phone. Say, did you send this to me? No? Oh, you may have a problem with your computer. You may have been hacked. So, as Alan was saying earlier today, this is what's called an out-of-band communication. So you get a message by text message. If you respond by text, that's in band, the same way you got the message. If you call, that's out of band. If you can send email, that's also out of band. You get an email that's suspicious, you can try texting a person or communicating with them by phone or knock on their door if they happen to be next door. Gotcha.
I'm just wondering if you get an email, and you open it, right, click on it, is that still okay?
Yeah,
As long as
it's going to be hard to detect these without opening the email, but that's probably where you want to stop.
Okay.
So, and the obvious examples of that are, I got one. My brother headed to Europe. I have no idea how somebody figured out he was going to Europe with his wife, but I got a message from him 6 hours later saying, "Help! I'm stuck in Madrid. They won't let us through passport control." And I'm saying, he was flying in London. He wouldn't be stuck in Madrid, and he didn't mention his wife, who would be with him. So it would have been, we are stuck. So I immediately said, uh-oh, my brother's been hacked, which, given my brother's knowledge of technology, is not a surprise. So anyway, and of course, these people are after whatever they can get from you. Some things are worth more than others. Some of the ne'er-do-wells involved here have specific MOs. They'll go after credit card information, or they'll go after Medicare information, or they'll go after gift cards, all the variety of things they might decide to go for. So this is a picture of a guy out there trying to get you. I turned researching this, I found out that smishing is a version of phishing that uses a messaging service. So when you get a text message on your phone, again, if it looks suspicious, that could be a smishing attempt. I don't have any examples. I apologize. The good news is I've not been smished. So, I got this one like 10 days ago, and I said, okay, that's neat. Here's the, the scam of the week. There's a couple of seats around. Okay. Anyway, the scam of the week, and then I realized I keep getting these. But this is one that came out recently. It's an attempt to pretends to be from the Department of Transportation of New Hampshire. They want you to go in, and of course, the first thing they're going to ask you for is, well, you need to prove your identity so we can fix the problem, right? And that's immediately the way they're going to try to get you to give them the information they need to be able to either steal your identity or do something else. So, rule of thumb: don't get involved with somebody online who wants more about information about your identity. If they don't already know it, they don't have a need to know. If they seem to be a government agency, find the government, find the phone number for that agency and call the agency directly. Don't start interacting online. So protect yourself by just being very skeptical. It's the number one protection you have. Well, that's interesting. That got useful.
It's still running.
Apparently in the wrong place. So then, after I got that one, another spam. I see people saying, "Oh yeah, we got that." Did you recognize it was phishing? Okay. So, and you'll notice this looks rather authentic. What people do to create these attempts is they'll take the actual site that they're trying to emulate, something from EasyPass, something from Department of Transportation, and they'll then put their own words in. So they'll change the message, and most importantly, they'll change the way that you communicate with them. So instead of, they'll have something down here, and it looks like it's going to go to NewHampshirePass.com, but I can't do this right now because that's just a picture. If you hold your cursor over that in a hover, you'll see that's not the URL it goes to. So this is the URL. It has this funny HTTPS:// in front of it. And then from there is the intended destination. But this one is no doubt spoofed. And if you held your cursor over it, you would see it go somewhere else. So that's a way to discover whether something is going where it claims to go or not. Now, of course, in the middle of this, I got this thing from Social Security, another agency that's an obvious target for people to pick up and spam you and try to get you, to give them information. And if they get your Social Security number, they're going to change where your Social Security goes, right? You don't want that. And of course, with the things happening in DC right now, people are concerned about Social Security. So the result is people are more likely to hit this, which makes this a lucrative target for the bad guys. Well, it turns out this one's legitimate. And I'll show you a way to verify that. But in fact, 2 days from now is National Scam Day that the Social Security Department is advocating. And you'll notice that one of the things at the bottom of the list I gave you is, in fact, the Social Security site for scam alerts. So they actually recommend some things, which I will let you see because this is a legit thing. First you need to learn how to sort of recognize scams. I found it very interesting that United Way in Nashua has a newsletter that's going to be talking to people about what the recent scams are. So that may very well be a good tool. I just found out about that today, so I've not tried it. I don't know what it looks like, but it came out of a different media channel, which is the HIPPO, which makes it more likely to be a legitimate source of news rather than if I got an email saying, "Oh, sign up for our scam alerts and we'll scam you." So, obvious things are, the guy that's told you he just won a prize, probably not. The Nigerian prince who needs somebody in the United States to transfer his money to. Any Nigerian prince that thinks they're going to transfer their money in this country and have it safe is probably and of course, catfishing, which is, somebody who wants to have a relationship with you, and of course, the other indication is some kind of unusual request for payment. Instead of using your credit card, which is tracker, they want you to buy gift cards or send them cash or a wire transfer, almost anything. And of course, anybody that's doing this is going to claim, and we'll make sure your money's safe, right? Trust. We're not going to give it back, but it's going to save us. They recommend reporting it as soon as possible and look at some of the channels you can use to report things. If you actually get trapped in one of these scams, first of all, you are not the first person. It's happened to a lot of people. It's really hard to avoid. So, and senior population and life members, which is the IEEE group here, are candidates for targeting for this because Typically, we're a little less familiar with the technology. We may be a little more gullible. We may be in a mood that says, well, I should help somebody. So beware of the fact that you're getting these requests. And that's their URL for their website, Scan. Now, I went to that site and I got this. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there saying, hold on a minute. The Social Security Administration gave me a bad lead. In that window of time, and I have a sneaking suspicion what happened is the site got overloaded. They sent out this email, hit 1 million people, or maybe 100 million people, and only, 1 million of them replied or clicked on it, and the million that clicked on it, some of them got through, and then the rest of them get this because, there's no way to keep the website operational until they have it loaded. Went back a little bit later, and it actually did work. So my cynicism about interference from people in the Dodge organization is unfounded in this case. And this is actually what it looks like. That's their wonderful little logo, slam the scam. And again, this is kind of thing that they're saying you want to be aware of. So they pretend to be an organization, a person an organization a government agency. Typically, they're going to be asking you then for information, promising the real hooks that tend to get your attention are urgent. You'll start accruing fines if you don't, whatever. So these things that make you concerned, or lose money if you don't, respond to their request. How to avoid it? Remain calm. Talk to somebody you trust, whether that's family members or somebody in the building here. People like Chris have a good experience with some of this, or they've had experience with this. I won't say that it was good. And don't give people money. Don't give people your credit card number. Don't give people gift card. Just say no. And if one of your kids has a daughter, a niece that in fact has a birthday and they don't get the Amazon gift card today, you know what? They'll survive. There will be a way to solve that. So don't let somebody pressure you into doing something. Well, today it's her birthday, or So how do you figure out when something is actually spam? So here's a couple of indications. This is something that came out of my spam folder, and I said, "Oh, this is fun." One thing up there is, and this is really bad spam. Bad meaning the people doing this don't really know what they're doing. First of all, the return address is rather weird. Copy cart something at Gmail. Then there's this really simple question. It's not a effort. There's no indication of who this person is or why they're asking the question. And I have no idea who that name is associated with anyway. It's obviously more difficult if that was somebody whose name I recognized. And this chop on Amazon, that's a curious error. It used to be when you saw bad English, bad grammar, that was an indication of spam, and phishing, and things like that. Nowadays, with artificial intelligence, text that's too good may be an indication that it's coming through. Here in Timbuktu, and I can give you a real world example. Apparently, Thailand has started to crack down on the spam and phishing factories that are just over the border in Myanmar. So they've actually gone into Myanmar and started arresting the people running this and literally liberating the slaves that are in these factories generating these emails and things and trying to get people to give them money. So that's an example. I mean, the people behind these are not always the person you contact if you follow through, which I hope you don't, may very well be chained to a desk, literally chained to a desk, so they can't escape. So, and they don't always spell properly, but with AI, they can now submit that to ChatGPT and it will correct spelling. So that I was surprised to see a misspelled word, put it that way. So how does somebody actually do this to you in terms of getting your email list and using your name? They basically have two ways they can get to your email list. One is to go through something like Comcast and hack in there. Well, actually, three ways. They can hack into Comcast. That's difficult because Comcast tries to use state-of-the-art protections to keep people from breaking in. The second one is they'll try to break into your computer. How do they do that? They send you an email that says, click on this link for cute pictures of kittens playing. And yes, you'll get a picture of cute pictures, kittens playing, but at the same time, they're going to download the full Trojan horse situation. Along with that picture is going to become a little app that sticks on your computer and grabs information. The third way is if you have a username and a password that's easy to break. What they will do is they can use your username and your password to get into your account at Comcast. And once they're in your account, they can tweak your account characteristics. And the first thing they'll do is change where does your email go, have it forwarded to them instead of to you. So now you no longer are able to control where the email goes. And then they're going to create messages of the kind I'll show you in a minute that have apparently coming from a real person, but then when you look at the notch below it, you'll find it doesn't come from that source. So that's how they get into your system. And of course, once they get to your email list, they have you, they have your contacts. They go after your contacts using your name. And of course, your contacts are simply saying, oh, yeah, Jane sent me a note, or Jim sent me a note. I should do that. For some reason, I haven't seen this recently. For about 3 or 4 years, I was chair of the IEEE section here in New Hampshire. There would be periodic transmissions to our executive committee from appearing to be from me, saying, this is Jim. We need to get some awards to somebody. Can you buy some gift cards for me? And I can give them the awards, which first of all, I would never do, but it's not totally unthinkable. It just would never be asking people to buy gift cards. I would go down and buy them myself. I actually have an IEEE credit card I could use for that. So no need for that at all. But that's an example. I don't know. They obviously scraped our website and pulled off names and contact information from it in order to be able to go after our executive. And they had the good sense not to send it to me. So I'd get it back from somebody like Alan, who's one of our most astute members. They'll say back, Jim, I got an email from you. It says this. Is this really you? Then I have to send a note out to the whole XCOM saying, ignore that last email. It wasn't really me. Passwords are a great deal of frustration because basically everybody, everywhere you go, wants to know that you are you. Passwords are the way to confirm that. And there are some sites where you really want to have unique passwords. You don't want to use a duplicate password on a financial institution, a bank, stockbroker. You don't want to do that on a credit card, obviously. Health institutions, you don't want, your doctor, hospitals, service labs and whatnot. You want to have a unique password for each of these. Government entities, the IRS, Social Security, Medicare, and your email account. Because your email account is the golden ticket that somebody can use to try and get a change of password confirmed by, oh yeah, send me a message and you get that 26-digit thing in email and you put it back in and change password or whatever. And so your email is also very important. The rest of the entities you are interacting will typically want your ID to track, so you can find out who you are and make sure that you get to your whatever it is service that they provide. So let's imagine somebody like Walmart. So you go to Walmart website, you buy stuff. What can somebody do if they break into your Walmart account? They can start buying stuff in your name, presumably, which would be just if you have a credit card that's built in. You might be able to do that, although they're supposed to always ask for that magic 3-digit code that's on the back of your card that won't somebody do that. They could pay your bill. I always think of the electric company. So yeah, what can they do? They can shut off my electricity. Yeah, not nice. Or they can pay my bill. I don't mind if they pay the bill. So I have less concern with some of these other sites as to the quality of your password.
And question about, there are sometimes a menu will pop up on different sites and they'll ask you if they can auto-generate a very complex password for you. Should you say no or left that, say yes? What's your advice on that?
So that probably is your browser. Start with that as opposed to the site remote. And browsers today will hold your passwords for you. So, if you, I probably have 100 sites I go to, occasionally. When I go to the site, it says, enter your username and password, little secret. If I don't give a damn, I use the same password. That way I remember it. But it's only for sites where I don't really care if somebody hacks in and it gets to me. So anything else, I have passwords I use specially. The ones that they are proposed, they're first of all, very strong passwords. There's all the strange characters and all this other stuff, which is potentially very useful for a site like a bank. But of course, there you want to make sure I hate to say this, you write it down. Because when you go back to the bank, if your browser saves it for you, that's nice. Now your browser will get in there. But if you write it down and you're on a different machine or whatever, if you don't write it down, then you have to go through the hassle of changing your password, which if it's a bank account, should be a bit of a hassle. You don't want people getting into bank accounts. So I might take that advice if it's an important account and then keep track of it carefully. And if it's not an important account, I would skip that, create your own password, it's easy to remember.
What about the apps that will hold your passwords for you? You can keep the app on the phone and save your passwords in that app. Good idea, that.
That's one of the recommendations that a lot of the experts have, I'll just put it that way, is to use an app. As I pointed out, your browser has that. You already have that app on your computer, your browser will save your password. I do not save the password for my bank or my email or social security. So I have passwords, again, that top list, financial institutions, health institutions. I don't let it save my password there because if somebody gets their hands on my computer and walks away with it, and yeah, I do have a password on this too, but the probability of somebody hacking in is enough that I don't want that. And by the way, the browser, because I use the same one on my cell phone and on my computer and on my desktop computer upstairs, passwords are available on all three. That's nice. Anytime I go into the websites from any one of those, it knows who I am and how we got to it. And it's another reason why I don't use that safety password for a financial institution. I got that up here, not on there. Yeah.
How safe is using a cloud service? Your backup cloud service, for instance, to save a file with passwords in it. It's not on your native computer, but there's a connection from your computer to the cloud. Is that easy for hackers to exploit?
For hackers to exploit that, have to do one of two things. You either have to break into somebody like Microsoft or Amazon, wherever it is you're storing that data. And those companies are very protecting us. Oh,
As you're swinging your hand around the houses, clicking on things, so just click share on you.
all right. Click share on. Don't talk with your hands. Okay. Hopefully I'm back online to people who are remote. Oh, thank you for watching the screen. Again, I'm looking the wrong way. So, I'd say that your data in the cloud is fairly safe. However, obviously to identify yourself to the cloud, that system is going to use a username and password and maybe what's called two-factor identification. So two-factor identification, and my bank and some other things use this now almost all the time. If I go into, where my stockbroker, I put in my username, fine, put in my password, fine. And then it comes and says, I've sent a message to your phone or sent a message to your email, put the 6 digits here. That's two-factor identification, not just the password, but also that special key. And that's, again, additional level of security. So those are all elements that help protect you. And in general, yeah, it's a little frustrating to do it, but it's worth having that second tier of protection on some of your accounts. So here's an example of a email message, oddly enough, I sent to the core community here. And I encourage you all to consider participating in Young Inventors. It's a lot of fun. Having said that, how do you know it's from me? Right? There's a good question. So notice when I do that little down arrow by the main up there, circle in red, when I click on that, it gives me an expansion of information about this email. And notice it says that I'm Jim Isaac. Yeah, okay. It has my email in the groups IO world. Okay. But then it also says reply to, and that reply to address is mine. So now you can say, this probably really did come from Jen. And if I reply to this email, it will go back to the account I expect. So this is a way to test to see if something's legit. And of course, some of the things you get aren't. So here's an example again of another email I got. I think this came out of my spam folder. And it has this classic urgent, right? Red letters, you got to do something right now. If you don't do it in the next 24 hours, the world will come to an end. Probably not. But notice the reply to address. It's not reply to McAfee or McAfee.com. Even up at the top, it says admin at Jonathan Anti-Layorg. That doesn't look like it's from McAfee as a corporation at all. And it's not very well disguised. I'm not quite sure who Jonathan Layorg is, but I suspect this one's spam. And of course, it's sent to Mark Isaac at my domain, which is a mistake I made once, but it tells me a little bit about where they got the email address from. So of course, this one is phishing spam. They're trying to get into my computer. I'm sure they'll say, oh, we need to download an update for your McAfee because there's something wrong. So, do this and they'll start downloading. What's going to download is something, take over my computer, steal my identity and get into my bank accounts. What's interesting is I got something from Harvard Freight saying I won a Predator 3500, generator, something we obviously need here. Notice it's from the same idiot who also just left their admin at that up on top. So when you see something this stupid, it's like, okay. Again, offering, oh, you just won. That should set off red flags immediately. Yeah, you just won, right? Something you never entered. And in this case, they sent it to ACE 2009. You know where they got that email address from? Ace Hardware.
Oh.
So I play a game with my email accounts, if you haven't figured it out. Since I own a couple domains, I have an unlimited number of email accounts. So my email address with Ace Hardware happens to be ace2009@jimisaac.com. People get really weird. And, oh, really? You work for us? But it lets me track some of these strange things. If I see too much coming from Ace, I'll just take things that go to Ace 2009 and send them to, to trash if I realize that's really being used. So at the bottom of the page, you can hold it says you're the winner of a Predator inverted generator. If you hold your cursor over that link, you can find out where that link goes. And this is where that link goes. It goes to testalumni.roches.edu. Now, there's enough stuff in that remaining thing to store my entire life history. You know, there's enough characters there to encode just about anything. So any click through on that will both confirm that, you know, you did reply, and it will pass on enough information to immediately identify who it was that did reply, so they can get back to you. In fact, there's probably some things in there that aren't particularly well encrypted, but I suspect those are the largest, because that's the easiest way to do it. Obviously, the winner of a Predator 3500 watt generator from Harbor Freight is not going to be resolved at that email or that URL. That URL is obviously not associated with Harbor Freight or with generators or with anything else. So that's another way to detect this kind of spoofing. This one, I don't even have to go very far. No speak of the lingo's. I'm suspicious that that's probably Korean, but could be Chinese or Japanese. I don't know well enough. So you probably, when you get things that are that obscure, you're probably not even going to bother. That one you don't have to think about. So here's the question. Is this one legitimate or not? I'll just point out, I have never done business with Mike McCarthy. I have no idea who it is. I have never done business with McCarthySearch.com. And how many here think that's a phishing attempt? A couple. How many think that's a legitimate email but spam? I have no relationship. It turns out that's spam. Traditional, run-of-the-mill, everyday spam. It's an attempt to get me to do business with that. In this case, a headhunting firm trying to get me to come and use their services. And the way I know that, well, part of it is hiding down here. Now, this is actually, you know, signed by a legitimate entity, the same entity it came from. Now, mind you, I'm not interested in the job. If I were, my best solution might not be to reply to the email, but to go to the website. Go to McCarthySearch.com, their website, and see if they exist and are legitimate, whether they have job listings that look relevant to me. And if I think they are legit, maybe I will reply to the email. But what's called lateral thinking, lateral searching, you know, you have this thing in front of you, go over here to see if it looks legit before you actually reply. Yeah.
Does it make a difference whether you put it in trash or spam?
It does make a little difference, because if you put it in trash, you have not notified the email supplier that it was spam. So and if I'll get something like this, and I'll do a little thinking about whether I want to put it in spam or trash. It is spam. But if I put it in spam, I'm telling my email supplier that this guy's not legit. And he may, yeah, do I want to disrupt somebody's business? They shouldn't be spamming people. But it's not always easy to figure out. Now, this isn't my spam. As well it should be. I mean, right up at the top, it says 2degrees.nz. By the way, that .nz, I think that means New Zealand. So, you know, but the last part of the URL is the domain. And countries have domains, that one being New Zealand. US is the US domain. .gov is the US government domain. So when you see something that's actually from .gov, it's a reasonable assertion that it actually came from the government. But you notice that a lot of these trapped emails in my spam folder, it asks, well, you know, is this safe? I have the option of saying, yes, this is safe. And notice that emails from the vault often go to my spam folder. And I have to say, no, it's not spam. So it recognizes certain sources as generating a lot of emails, maybe at the same time, and that raises a concern. So one of these classic warning things, caution, your account will be deleted. My account will be deleted. Have you ever seen a corporation that wouldn't let you back in? We're going to end your subscription. Your account will be deleted. Yeah, right. Okay, good. Delete my account. And then 2 weeks from now, if you're legitimate, you're going to be sending me, we want you back. Take this discount. Deleting my account would be the best thing that ever happened. But anyway, is this legit? Not legit. How many think this is a phishing attempt?
I think it's an issue.
I'm on phishing one. Okay, look at this for a second. This claims to be coming from some subscription thing, but saying.com, what the heck is that? I have no relationship with something that has that name. So even if there was a subscription in my name from that entity, it's not an entity I do business with. So this is phishing, almost certain. And bye-bye account, I think I lost it on Friday the 7th, whatever that was. So another one of these, notice it's got the warning message. Warning, this could be spam, or this could be evil or whatever. Phishing or real? How many are going to go with phishing? How many are going to go with real? I think this was legit, oddly enough. Couple of indications. It's talking about PayPal legal agreements, a topic that wouldn't be surprising for PayPal to have. And notice, I have an extra confirmation. Guess what email I use with PayPal? So connecting those two things indicates that this actually came from somebody who had access to my PayPal account in some way. So probably is PayPal. And now you notice that there's this option to say, look safe as well. So you have the ability to tell the email service that it is a safe email. Yeah.
I get these from PayPal, but I don't have a PayPal account.
Ah. Or
They look just like that too.
they look just like that.
Yeah.
And that's the trick spam. The fishers, phishing, the bad guys use is they'll take something that is the way that the company does it, and then they'll change things. In particular, they'll change things like the reply address, or in this case, there's no reply. So the only way to find out would be to go down and look at the link and see if it goes to PayPal or somewhere else, hovering over that link. But the email itself on the surface to be like. What about this one? Phishing?
Yes.
Come on, go.
Yeah.
This is from, Geek Squad is Best Buy, right?
Right.
And, but this is not Best Buy.
Right.
This Gmail, oddly enough, the FBI or something might be able to trace that down, figure out who that person is, and use this to arrest them. One wish they had the resources to do that, but it's very unlikely it will happen. And when they resolve it, it may very well be in Myanmar in one of those factories where they have people chained to their desks. So another place to look, back to our social security example, is in my browser, which is Firefox. Up in the upper right-hand corner, this is tied to my email. So my email service, which is Gmail. Upper right-hand corner, ... is a whole bunch of options. Notice I can, at that point, report that this is spam. I can report this is phishing. Then I could block this, source of mail. So if you're getting email from somebody, that's just bugging you and, you don't need to communicate with them. A vendor you did business with last year and they're just coming back after you. You can block that source. So you can actually block them. You don't have to declare it as spam because maybe it isn't. Maybe they really had a legitimate business interaction with you a couple of years ago. I see these occasionally. And I'll just block them. You can also do unsubscribe with the email. The only downside of unsubscribing the email is it confirms you are the target. And I prefer blocking, because then the messages just go to Never Never Land. And there's no confirmation to that company that I still exist. So matter of choice of how you deal with something. So this was a recent spam attempt. Unfortunately, using my Ollie email address, you have to figure out how to do that. So you have a new secure message from Chase Online. Okay, sounds like it. Fortunately, I don't do any business with Chase Bank, so I immediately know this is spam or phishing. But if you had a relationship with Chase, your best course of action would be go to the Chase website. Don't use this email to access information, or call the bank. I just got this note from you. You said there's a security message. They'll probably, they already heard this. They can say, please delete that. That's phishing. They're going to try and steal your identity. And if they haven't heard it, they'll figure it out. It's like, oh, really? That must be a new one. So there's also a thing called spear phishing. I had fun with AI. It took me a long time to get it to put a spear in the guy's. Anyway, spear phishing is when somebody who's a bad guy wants to go after a specific individual or a specific corporation. So in this case, they'll be targeting the chief technology officer, the chief financial officer, say Chase, since we're picking on Chase already, or somebody in the finance department of Chase, or somebody in the accounting department of Chase. And if they get in there, into the corporation, and infect that person's computer, they can then penetrate the entire corporation. So, and of course, defense contractors are another target for this. Military people are targets for this. But this is very focused. And the likelihood that you will be targeted with spear phishing is very low, unless you happen to have access to some major institutions' assets. Couple observations: corporations do not always implement good security practices. So you need to be careful about where you store information. The question that was asked earlier about putting your information in the cloud is a good one. Amazon, probably reliable, Microsoft reliable, Google reliable, fly by night, cloud storage, maybe not reliable. So give some thought to how legitimate that source is. And occasionally, the people who put apps on your phone or apps on your computer are not always following what I would call software engineering best practices. And they can download apps onto your computer that might have problems, which may be a security flaw. And that can even include security vendors that happened to across the full world, I think, with a security vendor about 3 or 4 weeks ago. They downloaded an update, and that update didn't work the way they wanted. And all their companies that installed the update ended up with the system that wasn't working for a while.
Yeah, I have a question about your last bullet point there about disclosing Medicare number. So nursing here has prepared these lovely emergency packets for us to keep under the sink should we ever be transported. Would you advise to not put a copy of your Medicare card in there? Or health insurance cards, and just keep it to the medical history and leave it at that?
If you consider 2 or 3 possibilities. One is you're transported, that information goes with you, but you happen to have your stuff with you. You have your purse, you have your wallet, wherever you keep your Medicare card, your health card. So when you get there, they say, what's your, care, you can pull out your card and show it to them. They're happy. The reality is, if you need real service immediately, they're going to give it to you. And you can close that loop later. Because they're not going to want to put themselves in a position of liability of not having treated you because they didn't have your card. So that much you're probably okay with. On the other hand, you're unconscious, you're being taken down to the local hospital. And if that number's there, you're not in a position to try and deal with it. You may have somebody with you that has that information too. Obviously, you want to make sure your spouse or other people have access to information. They know either what it is or where it is. So that they can help close the loop, if you need to have services.
Thank you.
And another thing that's been coming up is browser error messages that are targeted or associated with extensions to the browser. And sometimes you will have entities that want to add an extension to your browser. You know, you want to think a little bit about whether you really need that extension, whether you're going to use it, whether you want it, and then what happens when they update it, they download something into your system. It may not be intentional, but just simply that has a security flaw in it that lets somebody else use that extension in a way that wasn't intended. So being safe from unsafe extensions, in various browsers, they have safe browsing options, private browsing options, Firefox, which is what I use. I use it with containers. So all my IEEE stuff is in one container, all my banking stuff is in another container, all my other, and so forth. So if I go down with my, personal container account and something is downloaded to my computer, they can hack my browser. They can't see my IEEE account, they can't see my bank account because those are isolated inside the browser. Just a little extra level of paranoia I have. That may or may not be useful. So this corresponds with the handout I have and also the last slide, so I'll leave it up. The only thing that I have in addition that is not on your handout is the United Way Scam Alert newsletter. While we're talking about URLs, let me explain something about URLs. Normally, when you see United Way as the source of something, you would expect to see http:// something like United Way here, unitedway.org, in fact, would be the obvious. Tiny URL is good, ISGD, and I'm trying to remember Bitly, which is the Google shortener. Because URLs can get really long, people use concatenated URLs. So they'll go to some place like Bitly, like Tiny URL, like is good, and then that organization will say, okay, what URL do you want to have expanded or contracted? And you can contract it to something obscure, or if you're really sophisticated, you can contract it to something that makes sense. So what we have here is this service allows them to contract it to something that makes sense with scam alerts, United Way, Greater National. So that's what they use as their contraction, which is much easier to type in to a browser than if you had to go, type in allofunitedway.org/ and then of course what comes after that's going to be long. I'll point out that this part of the URL is case sensitive for these particular extended URL, the shortened URLs. So if you don't put a capital S here or a capital A there, you won't get to the same place. So anyway, that's another resource that you may find useful. And at that point, I'll open it to questions, including those from a couple in the room here. Yeah.
Since we were talking about password storage, could I ask you if you're aware of a good vault service that we could store those in and then tell our kids when we pass on, they'll have access to our passwords? If we give them one password to the vault.
No, that's a great point. Your digital legacy. How do your heirs, your kids, whatever, your spouse even, know how to get access to your digital assets? In some cases, it won't make much difference, but in some cases it may. And it certainly makes life easier for them if they don't have to work their way through all the processes of providing death certificates and other things in order to get somebody to release information. And the answer is no, I do not have a service I'd recommend, but I probably should. Yeah.
In answer to the question, not so much for passwords specifically, but Fidelity does have a service, and I believe it's free. It's called FID Safe, FidSafe. And what it is you can load up any documents you want, and you can identify who should receive them and when. So basically, you can load up your trust documents, your will, your powers of attorney, any financial information you want. And based on a court order or your say-so, they will release it to a given distribution you control. As I said, it's a free service. They don't make, they don't advertise it. I came across it many years ago, but it's something you may want to look into.
FID safe.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know about it. That's fine. One of my financial institutions. Yeah.
The reason I asked about cloud is that solution that was suggested to me a few years ago was first you have a nationally known cloud, and they're like the Google or Mac backup, and then in that location you have a file. I'll pick a name that I haven't used, catpictures.pdf. And it has a single password that if they've already looked through this crowded field of files, they're probably not going to think catpictures.pdf has all your passwords. But if you or one of your kids enters that password, that PDF opens, which was already secured on the cloud, secured on a password, and now they have the passwords.
One other thing I would suggest you do, since you're going that far, is take a picture of your passwords and not a PDF. Because if it's a PDF, and it says cat pictures, and it has plain text passwords,
Good point.
it can be easily converted to text and used. If it's in a photograph, it takes more effort. Remind you with AI, no, a lot more effort.
Yeah.
But-
And can you encrypt a JPEG?
You can, but now you also have to make sure the person can decrypt it. So,
Yeah, but Microsoft Word, Excel can be encrypted, with AES 256, algorithms. And that's basically where, so if you encrypt that file, basically you gotta be the NSA to break it. The average hacker's not gonna bother. So if you created that file and then stored it in the cloud, it's reasonably safe. Obviously, you can still call it cat pictures, but it, if it's got the extension X, for a Word document, they'll know it's not cat pictures. But you can say house repair, something
Yeah.
else that's a little, less obvious.
stop this and let people on, if there are people online who have questions, I think you can press your space bar and get unmuted, or you can unmute. Looking to see if anybody unmutes. Other questions in the room?
Oh, this is many.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that facial recognition as passwords is kind of a good thing.
Well, facial recognition, certainly, back to single phase or two phase. It's probably better than the simple text. But the question is, can somebody hold up your picture to the camera and get it to crack your password? So, I know back to Fidelity does voice recognition when I call them. And they want me to, talk a little bit, they'll say, who are you, what are you, who do you want to talk to? And they'll say, your voice recognition is passed, they literally tell you that they've done that. Which is a way of confirming who you are, similar to face recognition, but maybe a little harder to hack.
I use fingerprint on a lot of these things. Is that fairly hard to hack?
It's hard to, it's probably, you have to think what is the source? Is it
Yeah.
unique? Your face and your fingerprint are fairly unique. And then how is it being read into the system? The fingerprints are typically being read in by a fingerprint scanner in your computer or in your cell phone. So that's a very local, computation that's done to verify who you are, as is iris recognition. Although I find when I do the iris recognition on my cell phone or whatever that is, I'm not sure my eyes are always the same, and it passes sometimes I like, I thought I was doing this, you know. So I'm not sure quite how accurate they are. Better than nothing, I think, is the answer. Other question?
Yeah, my Citibank account, probably others, has just on the mobile, has a 6-digit thing that you can enter, I forget what they call it, instead of putting in your name and password. And
Passkey.
that's key, yeah. There are several other places that ask you for places, but I haven't bothered. And that's something that's, somebody's birthday that died 100 years ago. Nobody would ever figure that out, so.
If it's really just 6 digits in a row,
Not, well, it's 6, not all the same.
no, but if it's 6 digits, the amount of time it takes to hack that is measured in seconds.
Really?
Oh,
So, yeah, and one of my friends used to do, talk about what kind of password you needed to protect what kind of content. And, now the good news is, if it's 6 digits, that means it's gonna take, an average of it's 100,000 options. It's gonna take an average of 50,000 attempts to hack your password by just brute force. And most of those services will stop after 5 attempts. So most of them will not let you, and after the first 1,000, they'll probably say, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to call us up and get a new 6-digit entry because, somebody's trying to hack into your account. But yeah, password typically, it's the reason why everybody says your password has to have at least 8 things, and it has to be lowercase, uppercase, a number, and a special symbol. And the reason they go through all that is to avoid somebody just turning on a machine that tries every possible one. So, yeah, I think there's more to your passkey than just 6 digits, I'll bet. I have not tried using passkeys. I don't know if anybody here has. Anyway, yeah. Other questions? Are you paranoid yet?
yeah.
Good, you're listening.
Well, I mean, it's.